to save the girl I loved most. I chose to betray her when she loved me the most. Everyone called me a heartless, ungrateful scumbag. But I didn't care at all about abandoning her to become a clinical trial subject. 3 years later, my time as a test subject came to an end. The first thing I did wasn't to beg for her forgiveness, but to go to a funeral service center instead. Because of those 3 years of testing experimental drugs, my organs were already severely failing. Now, I only have 1 month left to live. I didn't want her to find out the truth that I had intentionally staged that betrayal back then, only to have her spend the rest of her life trapped in regret and self-blame. So, I will take this secret with me and leave her forever. Mr. Lee, the total cost for the funeral package you reserved comes to $91,000. I looked down at the bank card in my hand. There was only $40,000 inside. I never thought that even choosing my preferred way to die would be a luxury for me now. I handed the bank card over and said, I only have $40,000 for now. Can I pay the remaining balance in a few days? The staff member indicated that it would be fine, as long as I paid the rest within a month. Earning $51,000 in a single month was going to be incredibly difficult for me, but there was one method that might be worth a try. I arrived at the entrance of the King family's largest jewelry gala. Because I didn't have an invitation, the security guard stopped me outside. I waited at the entrance for a full 3 hours before the people inside finally began to leave. Miranda Gu walked out elegantly, holding on to Logan Ding's arm. A wealthy young heir standing nearby complimented, Logan, President Gu is really treating you incredibly well. She bought that $80 million ring at the auction, without even blinking an eye. Logan had a sweet smile on his face as he said, Miranda said, you only get married once, so she wants to give me the absolute best of everything. Wow, that's basically her promising she'll never divorce you. Seeing that the two of them were about to get into a black stretch, Lincoln, I called out to stop Miranda Gu. The moment she heard my voice and turned around to see me, a whirlwind of emotions flashed through her eyes, before finally settling into a deep, bone-deep hatred. I walked up to her, took a seashell bracelet off my wrist, and said, Miranda Gu, I want to use this bracelet to trade with you for $51,000. This bracelet was made back when we first started dating, when we went to play at the beach, and Miranda Gu collected the shells and made it with her own hands. At the time, she said, Ethan, trust me. In the future, you can use this to trade with me for the most precious thing in the entire world. Miranda Gu violently snatched the bracelet from my hand. Her eyes filled with a rage that looked ready to consume me. Ethan Lee, we haven't seen each other in 3 years, and you only come looking for me to ask for money? I lowered my gaze to avoid her eyes, and said, if it's no use, then just forget it. Anyway, I didn't really have much hope to begin with. I only wanted to see her one last time before I died, to burn her face into my memory. After saying that, I reached out to take the seashell bracelet back, but Miranda Gu threw the bracelet straight onto the ground instead. I immediately reached down to pick it up, only for her to stomp her foot directly onto the back of my hand. I couldn't help but cry out in pain. Her sharp stiletto heel pressed down onto my hand, grinding into it mercilessly. The seashells were crushed to pieces, and the sharp fragments dug deep into my palm, causing fresh blood to pour out. Does it hurt? But compared to the pain and betrayal you inflicted on me back then, this is absolutely nothing. Quite a few people gathered around us. They began whispering among themselves, he's that scumbag who abandoned President Gu back then. At that time, President Gu was still starting her business, and suffered sudden heart failure requiring a transplant to survive. Once he found out, he abandoned President Gu immediately, hooking up with a wealthy heiress to live off her money and go abroad. He's probably regretting it so much his gut turns now, which is why he's shamelessly crawling back here like a leech. He really is pathetic. If I were President Gu, I'd make sure to ruin his life completely. What they were saying was the truth, but no one knew the hidden reality beneath that truth. Back then, Miranda Gu had heart failure and desperately needed a transplant. I went through endless hardships, and finally found a heart that was a perfect match for her. The matching donor was a person in a vegetative state, whose father was a fanatical pharmaceutical researcher. His sole condition for donating his son's heart was for me to volunteer as a test subject for his newly developed experimental drug. As a clinical trial subject, I knew that Miranda Gu would absolutely never agree to let me risk my life like that. Therefore, I hired someone to help me stage a performance, pretending that I was cheating on her and abandoning her. During those 3 years of testing drugs, my body was severely ravaged by the chemicals. With multiple organ failure, the doctor said I wouldn't survive past a month. Miranda Gu pressed her foot down even harder, and my entire arm began to tremble violently from the agonizing pain. I lifted my eyes to look at her, a self-deprecating smile appearing in my gaze. As I said, Miranda Gu, acting like this is going to make me think you're still completely obsessed with me. She kicked me squarely to the ground. As if you're even worthy. A sharp, agonizing pain flared in my chest. My face turned deathly pale, and I clenched my teeth tightly to keep from making a single sound. Squatting on the ground, I picked up the broken pieces of the seashell bracelet one by one, stuffed them into my pocket, and prepared to leave. However, a wealthy woman dressed in expensive clothing blocked my path. Holding a thick stack of bills in her hand, she said, "I heard that back then you were willing to sleep with anyone, just for $10,000. Well, here is $10,000 right now. Why don't you strip naked and show everyone just how pathetic you are?" The surrounding crowd instantly erupted into a roar of laughter. Seeing that I wasn't moving, someone else threw another $10,000 directly at me. "If you think that's too little money, I'll add another $10,000. Take it off for me." The crowd immediately began chanting, "Take it off!" My face burned hot with shame, and a wave of intense humiliation rushed into my heart. I wanted to leave, but I was completely surrounded by the crowd. Standing to the side, Logan Ding took hold of Miranda Gu's hand and said, "Miranda, let's go. A man like this isn't worth a single glance from you." Just as Miranda Gu and Logan Ding were about to get into the car, someone over there suddenly began tearing aggressively at my clothes. "What are you acting so innocent for? Strip him down so everyone can get a good look." I crouched on the ground, wrapping my arms tightly around myself, but my clothes had already been ripped to shreds. Everything before my eyes began to blur, and I felt as if I had been thrown back to my childhood, to those days of being bullied and tormented in the orphanage. But this time, there was no one coming to save me. I was the one who had personally driven away. The person who used to protect me all the time. Get the hell away from him. Miranda Gu's furious shout scattered the crowd. Immediately following that, a coat, still warm with her body heat, was draped over my shoulders. "Where is Natalie Liu? When you abandoned me to go abroad with her back then, did she let you live this kind of miserable life?" I could see a flicker of deep concern for me hidden within her eyes. With a pale face, I replied, "She threw me out when she got tired of playing with me. But I was only after her money in the first place, so I didn't lose out either. Would you like to give it a try, President Gu?" Miranda Gu pushed me violently back down to the ground. "Are you really this disgusting and desperate for money?" She immediately had her assistant bring over $100,000 in cash, and threw it directly at me. The sharp edges of the paper bills sliced across my cheek. "There should be a discount for a monthly retainer, right? From today on, you are my servant. For this next month, I am going to take my time playing with you." Leaving those words behind, Miranda Gu got into the car with Logan Ding and drove away. I slowly picked up the $100,000 from the ground, laughing bitterly at myself that my luck wasn't so bad after all. In a single day, I had earned enough for my own funeral money. Carrying the cash, I returned to the funeral center. After paying the fees, I took a taxi to the address Miranda Gu had left behind. As soon as I arrived at Spring Hill Lake Villa, the butler handed me a set of servant's clothes. "Put these on quickly." President Gu said, "You are to keep watch outside her door tonight." I changed my clothes and walked up to the second floor, stopping outside the master bedroom. Before I could even get close, the sounds leaking out from inside reached my ears. My entire body froze completely. Those sounds seemed to transform into invisible, razor-sharp blades, slashing into my heart, one agonizing cut at a time. Panicking, I turned around, desperate to flee from the hallway. But the bedroom door suddenly swung wide open. Miranda Gu was wearing a nightgown, and her bare neck was covered in intimate, passionate marks. She cast a sharp, piercing gaze directly at me. How did it feel, listening outside the door? I knew Miranda Gu was deliberately doing this to retaliate against me for my betrayal and cheating back then. I couldn't afford to let any flaw show. Mr. Ding sounds a bit uptight, though. I raised my hand and draped it around her waist, saying, "Since you paid so much money, President Gu, I'd be more than happy to give him some personal tutoring." Miranda Gu grabbed my chin in her palm, her grip tight and vicious, as she spat out, "You really are pathetic. Is it true that as long as someone pays you, you're willing to do absolutely anything?" A seductive smile appeared on my face. "Of course. Who would say no to money?" Miranda Gu shoved me away violently. "A man like you only disgusts me. However, I'm sure General Wang won't find you disgusting at all." Before I could even understand what she meant, I heard her issue a cold command: "Drag him to the backyard." 2 servants immediately marched over, dragging me roughly toward the backyard. Once we reached the backyard, I realized there was a ferocious Tibetan Mastiff waiting there. Staring at the massive canine teeth it bared, my entire body couldn't help but tremble violently. I had been bitten by a dog at the orphanage when I was a child, and I had carried a deep, paralyzing fear of dogs ever since. "No, I'm not going in there," I pleaded with the butler standing beside me. "Let me go. Please, I beg you, let me go." Miranda Gu's icy voice drifted over from behind. "Ethan Lee, didn't you say you'd do absolutely anything for money? Why are you scared now?" The last remnants of my sanity fought for control over my brain. Forcing down my tremors, I said, "I did say I'd do anything for money. But a twisted job like this requires an extra fee. The money you gave me isn't enough." Miranda Gu roared in anger. "I'll add another 100,000. Lock him in there." The servants shoved me hard into the cage, locking the door behind me. The Tibetan Mastiff immediately began pacing toward me with ferocious steps. My hands gripped the bars of the cage, as terror and despair utterly consumed my mind. The psychological walls I had built completely crumbled, and I could no longer maintain my composure. I looked at Miranda Gu and begged, "Miranda, I was wrong. I was wrong. Please let me out." Miranda Gu stared at the man who had once deeply hurt her, now kneeling before her in tears and begging for mercy. Yet in her heart, there wasn't the slightest hint of vengeful pleasure. Right at that moment, I suddenly let out a blood-curdling scream. The Tibetan Mastiff had sunk its teeth deep into my lower leg. The intense pain and sheer terror caused me to black out completely. By the time Logan Ding finished changing his clothes and walked out, he saw a bodyguard carrying me in his arms, while Miranda Gu followed frantically beside them, rushing outside like a madwoman. She didn't even notice that she had knocked Logan to the ground. Logan's gaze stared fixedly at me, an expression of extreme malice and cruelty flashing across his eyes. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself lying on a soft bed. The wound on my lower leg had already been bandaged. Logan Ding was standing by my bedside. Seeing that I was awake, he demanded in a sharp, accusing voice, "Ethan Lee, why did you have to come back? Back then, you abandoned Miranda when she was suffering from heart failure, leaving her all alone in the bridal suite. Do you have any idea that she almost died? When I rushed over there, she was throwing up blood all over her body, and she was still calling out your name. Fortunately, it wasn't her time to die. Just after I rushed her to the hospital, a doctor came to inform us that a matching heart had been found for her. But the very first thing she did after completing her transplant surgery was to go out and look for you. She said she was fully recovered now, so you wouldn't find her a burden anymore. She promised she would work hard to earn money and give you the best life possible. But what about you? You ran off to a foreign country with a wealthy woman to enjoy a lavish, carefree life. Do you know how hopelessly Miranda was crying at the airport back then? Tears flowed uncontrollably down the corners of my eyes. Over these past 3 years, my agony had been no less than Miranda Gu's. I had been trapped inside that dark, windowless laboratory, unable to escape, enduring nothing but endless pills to swallow, and an unceasing barrage of drug experiments every single day. I stayed by Miranda's side for 3 whole years, before I finally managed to walk into her heart. Now, we are finally getting married, yet a man like you actually dares to come back and pester Miranda again just for money. My lips trembled slightly. I wanted to say that I wasn't here for money, that it was because I was about to die, and I only wanted to see Miranda Gu one last time. But in the end, I couldn't utter a single word. Logan Ding spoke in a harsh, menacing tone. I will absolutely never allow a malicious, freeloading scumbag like you to stay anywhere near Miranda's side. The moment he finished speaking, he violently dragged me out of the bed, and then slammed his own head hard against the wall. Bright red blood immediately welled up from his forehead. Hearing the noise, Miranda Goo burst into the room. She quickly helped Logan Ding up, asking anxiously, "Logan, are you okay?" Logan Ding leaned against Miranda Goo's shoulder, and said in a weak, frail voice, "Miranda." He pushed me. I froze on the spot, completely stunned that Logan Ding would actually resort to this kind of method to frame me. Just as I was about to speak up to defend myself, Miranda Goo delivered a fierce kick straight into my body, her eyes terrifyingly cold. "If anything happens to Logan, I will make you pay for it with your life." As soon as she finished speaking, she gathered Logan Ding in her arms and rushed off toward the hospital. I was kicked down onto the floor, and a sharp, agonizing pain flared up in my abdomen. The pain caused my entire body to curl inward, but the pain in my heart was far worse. Miranda Goo hated me. She even wanted to kill me. "Ethan Lee, isn't this exactly what you wanted? Why does it hurt so much that you wish you could just die right now?" I didn't know how much time had passed before the butler led a group of people into the room, restraining me and dragging me to the hospital. Their aggressive handling made it seem as if I were some kind of unforgivable, heinous criminal. At the hospital, Logan Ding's head had already been wrapped in gauze. He was currently lying on the hospital bed, his face pale. Miranda Goo's eyes were filled with absolute heartache, but the moment she saw me, it instantly turned into a deep, agonizing hatred. "Kneel down and apologize to Logan." I was pinned down by the guards, forced to my knees on the floor, unable to move. At this point, I gave up all resistance, my eyes completely clouded over with a heavy, dead silence. I asked, "If I apologize, will you let me go and let me leave?" I was truly so exhausted, in absolute agony both physically and mentally. Right now, I only wanted to find a quiet place, to silently wait for my death. Hearing the word leave, Miranda Goo's heart couldn't help but twitch painfully. She grabbed the cup beside the hospital bed and splashed a full glass of water directly into my face. "You don't have the right to bargain with me. Ethan Lee, what you owe me can never be repaid in this lifetime." I let out a mocking sneer. "President Goo, acting like this really makes it look like you can't accept losing. It's completely normal for a man and a woman to fall in love and break up. How does that somehow turn into me owing you? You truly have no shame." Miranda Goo coldly ordered, "Hold him down for me, and make him kowtow to beg Logan's forgiveness." Someone immediately pressed my head down, slamming it heavily against the hard floor. Once, twice, 3 times, until my forehead was red, swollen, and oozing patches of blood. They still didn't stop. In the end, it was Logan Ding who spoke up. "Miranda, I'm already fine. Just let him go." Miranda Goo wrapped her arm around Logan Ding's shoulder. "Logan, he is deeply malicious. He actually dared to lay a hand on you, so you don't need to feel any pity for him." Logan Ding looked up at Miranda Goo instead and said, "I don't pity him. I just want you to let yourself go. Miranda, it's been 3 years. It's time for you to move on from him." Miranda Goo countered immediately, "Logan, don't overthink things. I stopped loving him a long time ago. Right now, I only want to exact revenge on this heartless, ungrateful man." Logan Ding stared at her stubbornly and asked, "Is that really true?" Heartbroken for him, Miranda Goo pressed a gentle kiss onto his forehead. "Of course it is. I promise you, before our wedding takes place, I will make him disappear from our world completely." Only then did Logan Ding give a reluctant nod. Miranda Goo turned around to look at me, bleeding and battered, and commanded, "Find a doctor to bandage him up." Dr. Liu, who happened to be pulled over at random, looked at me lying on the floor and gasped in shock. "Mr. Lee? What are you doing here?" Miranda Goo asked with a frown, looking over. "Do you know him?" My heart skipped a beat. Dr. Liu was the one person who knew the truth about the heart transplant back then. He had tried to warn me back then, saying that Arthur Tong was a total pharmaceutical maniac, someone who could ruthlessly turn his own biological son into a vegetable. If you become a clinical trial subject in his laboratory, it will be nothing less than trading your life for hers. But I had insisted on going through with it. Even if it meant trading my life for hers, I had to save Miranda Goo. If Miranda Goo started digging into this and asking questions, Then what happened back then could no longer be kept hidden. I cut in before anyone else could speak. Back then, Miss Liu and I were partying a bit too hard, and accidentally ended up in the hospital in the middle of the night. Dr. Liu was the one who handled my emergency room admission. Hearing this, Miranda Gu's expression turned terrifyingly dark. Ethan Lee, you really are disgusting. Sanitize this hospital room and everyone inside it, completely for me. After barking out the order, she turned and walked out with Logan Ding. I reached out and grabbed the edge of Dr. Liu's white coat, pleading, Dr. Liu, please, I beg you, do not tell Miranda Gu the truth about what happened. Dr. Liu looked down at me in my battered, wretched state, and asked, to save her. You let yourself be destroyed in that laboratory for 3 years. Now you barely have any time left to live, and she still severely misunderstands you. Ha! Is doing all this truly worth it? A pale, faint smile appeared on the corner of my lips, my gaze just as resolute as it had been all those years ago. It's worth it. Very quickly, a group of nurses wearing hazmat suits and carrying disinfectant tanks marched in. They began spraying a massive amount of chemicals all over my body and around the room. The heavy clouds of vapor choked me so badly that tears streamed down my face. Dr. Liu let out a deep, heavy sigh. He handed me a tissue, and then disinfected and bandaged my injured forehead for me. Over the next few days, Miranda Gu didn't do any more bizarre things to me. She truly just treated me like a servant to torment me. She made me hold a basin of water to serve her while she washed her feet, only to kick the basin over violently, forcing me to kneel on the floor and wipe the water clean. The meals that I worked so hard to cook were poured directly onto the floor right in front of my face for the dog to eat. The things made by an unwashed, filthy person like you are only fit for a dog's mouth. She took Logan Ding out to browse luxury boutiques, spending over $10 million to buy up every single watch in a designer store. She made me carry every single one of those watches back to the villa on foot. I ended up running back and forth for a whole day and night, until I collapsed on the street from pure exhaustion. When I woke up in the hospital once again, Dr. Liu informed me that because of the extreme physical toll I had put my body through these past few days, my system could no longer hold out. I had, at most, only 1 week left to live. When I heard those words, I unexpectedly felt nothing but a sense of pure relief. I finally wouldn't have to drag this half-dead, miserable body along anymore, living under the suffocating weight of my longing for Miranda Gu. However, before I died, there was still one last thing I needed to do. Right on cue, Miranda Gu's phone call came through. Ethan Lee, it was just a faint from anemia. How much longer do you plan on slacking off at the hospital? She spoke in an imperious, commanding tone. Get your ass over to the romantic bridal shop right now to help Logan try on his clothes. I got out of bed and rushed over to the bridal shop. Because my face looked terrifyingly pale, I had explicitly asked a nurse to help me put on some light makeup to cover it up. By the time I arrived at the bridal shop, Miranda Gu and Logan Ding had already changed into their wedding dress and suit, walking out from the fitting room. The entire wedding dress featured a soft lavender color, perfectly tracing the beautiful curves of Miranda Gu's figure. The shop assistant standing to the side spoke with faces full of envy. This wedding dress is absolutely gorgeous. I heard President Gu designed it herself. The lavender detailing on the dress was replicated exactly piece for piece from Provence. I stood frozen on the spot like a statue, the rims of my eyes growing uncontrollably wet. This wedding dress was exactly the same as the one I had once designed for Miranda Gu. She had actually gone ahead and made it a reality. But now that she was wearing the wedding dress, the person she wanted to marry was no longer me. Miranda Gu thoughtfully adjusted Logan Ding's hair, but the moment she turned around and her gaze landed on me, all the warmth vanished. Your face looks so flushed, yet you're still talking about anemia? As expected, it was just a pathetic excuse you cooked up with the doctor. I raised my hand to wipe away the tears leaking from the corners of my eyes, forcing a smile that looked more painful than crying. You saw right through me. I was originally hoping to use the opportunity to get a few more days of rest. Miranda Gu let out a cold sneer. Ethan Lee, I paid $100,000 to hire you for a month, not to bring you here to enjoy a vacation. Get over here right now and hold Logan's shoes. I walked over, picked up the pointed leather shoes sitting on the rack, and placed them right by Logan Ding's feet. Logan Ding lifted his foot to slide it in, and then stomped his heel down fiercely right onto the back of my hand. I let out a sharp cry of agony. My hand! Logan Ding slowly lifted his foot away, saying in a casual, careless tone, "Oh, I'm so sorry." My vision blurred and I didn't see what was under my foot. Miranda Goo glanced indifferently at my bruised hand. He's nothing but a servant. If you stepped on him, you stepped on him. There's absolutely no need for you to apologize. Miranda Goo walked over and looped her arm through Logan Ding's. Logan Ding looked at Miranda Goo, his eyes entirely filled with naked affection. The shop assistant also very smartly came over to help Miranda Goo arrange the train of her dress. Bitter sorrow flooded my heart. Shoved aside by several people, I backed out of the room with a bleak, despondent expression. But before I could walk more than a few steps, my arm was violently grabbed from behind. Miranda Goo dragged me straight into the adjacent lounge, pressing her body forward to trap me against the wall. Ethan Lee, if you hadn't cheated on me back then, everything happening here today would have belonged to you. You must be filled with regret right now, aren't you? Regret? If I hadn't agreed to become a clinical trial subject back then, I wouldn't have had to endure those 3 dark, hellish years, nor would I have ended up on the verge of death. But as I looked at the living, breathing Miranda Goo standing right in front of me, I felt that every bit of it was worth it. I lifted my eyes to meet her gaze, saying with absolute certainty, "No, I don't regret it." Why? Miranda Goo gripped my shoulders and roared in fury. You abandoned me for money back then. Now that I have wealth and power, why don't you regret it? I pushed her away, using a cold, detached voice to suppress the endless love overflowing in my heart. There is no why. I never regret anything I've done. After saying that, I pulled a bank card out of my bag and thrust it right in front of her face. There's $64,000 left in here. I'm giving it back to you. From this moment on, I am no longer your servant. Miranda Goo, our relationship is officially over. In an instant, Miranda Goo felt as if she had been thrown back to 3 years ago, when I stood before her with Natalie Lou in my arms, saying with that exact same cold, heartless indifference, "Miranda Goo, I don't love you anymore. From today on, our relationship is officially over." Seeing that Miranda Goo remained silent, I shoved the card straight into her hand, turned around, and walked away. I was terrified that if I stayed any longer, the emotions locked inside my heart would completely erupt. Just as my hand gripped the doorknob, Miranda Goo rushed up from behind me, wrapping her arms tightly around my waist and slamming me hard against the wall. Ethan Lee, do you really think I'm still that same foolish, naive Miranda Goo from 3 years ago? That you can just leave whenever you want to leave, and abandon me whenever you want to abandon me? Staring at Miranda Goo's face as it pressed closer and closer, my mind dissolved into total panic. What do you think you're... Before I could even finish my sentence, Miranda Goo had already forced my chin up, slamming her lips onto mine in a fierce, brutal kiss. I struggled violently, but she only held me even tighter. You bastard. My lip was bitten open, and the metallic taste of blood spread between our mouths. Suddenly, the lounge door was pushed wide open. Logan Ding stood at the entrance, fully dressed in his groom's suit. His eyes widened to their absolute limits, as he stared at the 2 people inside the room in complete disbelief. Her lost sanity snapping back into place, Miranda Goo turned a fiercely guilt-ridden gaze toward Logan Ding. Logan. Logan Ding stumbled backward a few steps, then turned around and bolted outside. Miranda Goo immediately gave chase and rushed out after him. Every ounce of strength inside my body felt as if it had been completely drained away. Without Miranda Goo holding me up, I slid down the surface of the wall and collapsed onto the floor. I raised my hands and buried my face inside my palms. Even so, the tears still leaked through the gaps of my fingers. I could feel that Miranda Goo still loved me, but I couldn't allow myself to indulge in those memories. I was about to die. Why did God have to torment me like this? Logan Ding ran out of the shop and started darting across the road. A speeding car was hurtling straight toward him. Miranda Goo was quick and sharp enough to pull him back just in time. Logan Ding flung her hand off. He still tried to charge back into the traffic. Why did you save me? Just let me die. That way you can be with Ethan Lee openly and honestly. Miranda Goo hugged Logan Ding tightly, pulling him over to the side of the road. Logan, listen to me. Logan Ding raised his hands to cover his ears. I'm not listening. I'm not listening. But Miranda Goo's voice still forced its way into his ears. Logan, originally, I truly intended to marry you. But, from the very moment Ethan Lee reappeared in front of me, my heart was no longer under my own control. I hate him, but I love him even more. If I go ahead and marry you right now, it would be incredibly unfair to you as well. With tears streaming down his face, Logan Ding looked at Miranda Goo. Miranda, I don't want fairness. I only want to be with you. Ethan Lee doesn't deserve your love at all. He abandoned you and left when you were at your most helpless and needed him the most. I was the one who stayed by your side all this time. Miranda, why can't you look at me more? I've liked you for 5 whole years. But I have loved Ethan Lee for 18 years, ever since I was 7 years old and met him for the first time in the orphanage, when he handed a piece of candy to me, as I was secretly crying in the middle of the night. His shadow has been engraved in my heart. Even though he abandoned me back then, I have never once forgotten him. Logan, I'm sorry. I'm the one who doesn't deserve you. Logan Ding screamed in a total breakdown. Miranda, wake up. Ethan Lee doesn't love you at all. He's only doing this for your money. Miranda Goo's eyes revealed a reckless, desperate courage for the sake of love. Even if he is only doing it for my money, I accept it. I will only feel grateful that I have wealth now, so I can finally give Ethan everything he ever wanted. Miranda Goo brought a completely despondent Logan Ding back into the bridal shop. Just as she was about to speak, intending to confess the true feelings of her heart to me, I beat her to it and spoke first. President Goo, the only reason I came back to find you before was because I had a fight with Natalie Liu. Just now, Natalie called me to make up. She even booked my flight back to England. I've already decided to go back. I won't be attending your wedding with Mr. Ding. Let me congratulate you both here. May you have a beautiful family and grow old together in perfect harmony. At this moment, Miranda Goo's heart was filled with an absolute peak of fury. Yet her entire demeanor became unnaturally calm instead. Ethan Lee, what exactly have I ever been to you in your heart? Suppressing the excruciating pain in my heart, a mocking smirk surfaced on the corners of my lips. Does President Goo really need me to spell it out so clearly? You were a backup plan, of course. When Natalie Liu and I broke up before, only then did I want to crawl back to cling onto a wealthy tree like you. Now that Natalie has come back to make things right with me, naturally, I'm going to choose the person I actually love. To be honest, it's not that President Goo isn't good. It's just that you're way too conservative in bed. I still prefer someone wild like Natalie Liu. Only she can truly satisfy me. Miranda Goo raised her hand and delivered a fierce, hard slap right across my face. Ethan Lee, you truly are a pathetic, shameless piece of garbage. I raised my hand to cup my burning cheek, my voice cracking with choked sobs as I replied, You're right, I am trash. President Goo should have known that 3 years ago. Having said that, I turned on my heel, intending to leave. Miranda Goo extended her arm to block my path. Ethan Lee, give me back my bracelet. From this day forward, I hope I never have to lay eyes on you again. I paused my footsteps. I unclasped from my wrist that seashell bracelet, the one that had been stepped on and crushed, and which I had painstakingly repaired piece by piece. Miranda Goo snatched the bracelet from me, and once again she ruthlessly stomped the shells into complete dust, leaving absolutely zero possibility of it ever being repaired again. I could hear the distinct sound of my own heart shattering. I asked in a quiet, dead tone, Can I go now? Miranda Goo replied in a freezing voice, I also have one thing to return to you. Once you take it, from then on, whether you live or die will have absolutely nothing to do with me anymore. Fine. That's exactly what I've been waiting to hear. What I wanted was for Miranda Goo to continue living a healthy, happy, peaceful, and fortunate life long after I was dead. Miranda Goo lowered her head and said softly to Logan Ding, Logan, wait for me here for a moment. I'll be right back. She solemnly delivered her sacred promise. Once I come back, my heart will hold only you, and I will love only you. Logan Ding could feel just how profoundly serious she was when she spoke those words. He nodded heavily. I'll wait for you. Miranda Goo drove me straight to the largest candy shop in the city. Bring out every single piece of candy in this entire store for me. It was the first time the shop assistant had ever heard such a request, and they asked with a hint of uncertainty, "Miss, are you absolutely sure you mean everything?" Miranda Gu pulled out a black card and threw it right in front of the assistant. Yes, everything. Before long, sack after sack of candy from the warehouse was entirely hauled out and piled up right in front of us. Miranda Gu grabbed a massive bag and dumped it at my feet. "Ethan Lee, when we were 7 years old, you gave me a single candy and stole my heart away. Now, I am returning that candy to you 1,000 times, 10,000 times over. I am buying my heart back." My fingernails dug deep into my palms, carving bloody gashes into the skin. Forcing my voice to stay firm, I replied, "Fine. Miranda Gu, from this moment on, neither of us owes the other anything." "That's right. We owe each other nothing." Miranda Gu didn't spare me a single glance more, turning around with absolute finality and walking away. Only when her silhouette had completely vanished into the crowd did I finally tear my gaze away. I tore open the packages of candy on the ground, shoving one piece after another into my mouth. I kept forcing them down until my entire body gagged, and I threw it all up, only stopping then. Squatting on the ground, I wailed aloud and wept bitterly. All the grievances of these past few years, all the agonizing pain, and all the suffocating love I held for Miranda Gu were completely unleashed through my desperate cries. In the end, I requested the shop assistants to pack up all of this candy and deliver it to the children at the city orphanage. The following day, I purchased a plane ticket to head toward the destination I had reserved for my own funeral, Provence. I had arranged for a flower burial. After my death, my ashes would be scattered across the lavender fields of Provence. Right at the moment I was preparing to board the plane, a breaking news report about a car accident began playing across the large broadcast screen. With a single glance, I recognized that the vehicle crushed beyond recognition was Miranda Gu's car. My mind instantly went completely blank. Then, I turned and sprinted frantically toward the hospital. All along the way, I kept dialing Miranda Gu's phone number unceasingly, but there was never any answer. I prayed to the heavens in my heart, begging and pleading for Miranda Gu to be safe and unharmed. I was willing to offer up absolutely everything I had as the price. By the time I rushed into the hospital, Dr. Liu was speaking to Logan Ding with a profoundly grave expression. After emergency resuscitation, the patient is finally out of immediate life-threatening danger. However, her eyes sustained severe impact, and her corneas are catastrophically damaged. She will be completely blind when she wakes up. Logan Ding looked as if he had been struck by lightning. Grabbing the doctor with both hands, he pleaded, "Doctor, I beg you, you must cure her. Her eyes are incredibly important to her. She cannot lose her sight. If you want to cure her, the only way is through a corneal transplant. But right now, the hospital does not have any corneal donors available. I'll donate mine." I burst through to stand before Dr. Liu, speaking with frantic urgency. "I am willing to donate my corneas. Please perform the surgery immediately." Dr. Liu frowned. "Mr. Lee, corneas cannot be donated from a living person." I said frantically, "But you know it." "I only have a few days left to live anyway." Dr. Liu's face turned deathly serious. "Even if you don't have long to live, the hospital has absolutely no precedent for harvesting corneas from a living body. This is strictly forbidden by both law and medical ethics." I reached out directly to the adjacent surgical tray, snatched a scalpel, and pressed it squarely against my own throat. "If I absolutely have to be dead before I can donate, then I'll just die right here in front of you." Ultimately, after a negotiation and signing a liability waiver, the hospital agreed to perform the surgery. I let out a sigh of relief, turned to look at Logan Ding, and said, "Please don't tell Miranda Gu that I was the one who donated the corneas." Logan Ding's mind was filled with utter confusion. "What exactly is going on here? How can you be on the verge of death?" Suddenly, he recalled those melodramatic idol dramas he had watched on television and asked in a slightly trembling voice, "Back then, did you really cheat and abandon Miranda? Just for the sake of wealth and money?" A faint, gentle smile appeared on my face. "Mr. Ding, please take good care of Miranda Gu from now on." After saying that, I turned around and walked into the operating room without looking back. Inside the operating room, Miranda Gu and I lay on 2 adjacent beds. I reached out to grasp her palm, interlocking my fingers with hers, and called out the name I had kept hidden in the deepest part of my heart. Miranda, I'm so happy that I can do one last thing for you before I die. Tears flowed silently from the corners of my eyes. Miranda, I love you. As the anesthetic was slowly injected into my body, I closed both of my eyes, and my fingers finally went limp, dropping away powerlessly. Miranda Gu felt as if she were trapped inside a very long dream. In that dream, there was our very first meeting, back at the orphanage. The first time we held hands. The first time we shared a kiss, all the way to my betrayal and cheating later on. And finally the two of us declaring we owed nothing to each other in the candy shop. Through her hazy consciousness, she overheard someone speaking. The corneal transplant surgery was a success. The donor, Ethan Lee, has passed away. My body was covered with a white sheet and wheeled out of the operating room. Logan Ding rushed forward in a panic and asked, "What happened to him?" Dr. Liu replied, "During the course of the procedure, Mr. Lee went into shock due to heart failure and has already passed away." Logan Ding was utterly stunned, unable to believe the reality right in front of his eyes. He had only just learned that my betrayal of Miranda Gu back then might have a hidden truth behind it. And now, I had died just like that right in front of him. Right at this moment, the staff members from the funeral center, carrying the letter of authorization I had signed during my lifetime, approached the doctor. "Mr. Lee already reserved his own funeral package 10 days ago. Please hand over Mr. Lee's body to us." After verifying that the information was correct, the doctor handed my body over to the funeral center's staff members. Logan Ding hurriedly stepped forward to stop them. "Are you saying that Ethan Lee reserved a funeral package with you guys as early as 10 days ago?" Logan Ding felt that the amount of information he had received today was too overwhelming for him to process all at once. 10 days ago was the day I reunited with Miranda Gu. Even back then, I already knew that I was going to die. The staff member nodded. "Yes, we are going to fulfill our agreement now by taking Mr. Lee's body to be cremated and holding his funeral." Once they finished speaking, they wheeled my body away. Logan Ding instinctively wanted to stop them again, but Miranda Gu was just being wheeled out of the operating room. He had no time to worry about anything else, and went straight with Miranda Gu to the intensive care unit. 2 hours later, Miranda Gu woke up from the anesthesia. Seeing Logan Ding watching over her bedside, she could not hide the deep disappointment in her heart. Her dream had been completely filled with my silhouette, yet the person she saw upon waking up was not me. "Miranda Gu, it's time to snap out of it. That heartless man is probably already on a flight back to England to rekindle his romance with Natalie Liu." Logan Ding's eyes were filled with pure joy. "Miranda, you're awake." Miranda Gu nodded, raising her hand to grasp Logan Ding's palm. "Logan, I'm sorry for making you worry." Logan Ding's eyes swelled with hot tears. "Miranda, it's enough just knowing you're okay." The attending doctor walked in to perform a post-operative check on the newly awakened Miranda Gu. "Your vision is normal, and there are no signs of any corneal transplant rejection or adverse reactions." Hearing this, Miranda Gu abruptly snapped her gaze toward the doctor. "What? Did you say I underwent a corneal transplant surgery?" While she was back in the operating room, she had indistinctly heard someone say something, but at the time she thought she was merely dreaming. Could it be that it wasn't a dream? The doctor replied, "That's correct. Because your eyes sustained a severe impact from the car accident, your corneas were catastrophically ruptured. Without a corneal transplant, you would have gone completely blind." "Who was it?" Miranda Gu immediately pressed for answers. "Who was the person who donated their corneas to me? Based on confidentiality protocols, we cannot provide any information regarding the donor." After saying that, the attending doctor turned around and walked out. Miranda Gu immediately threw off her blanket, intending to get out of bed. Logan Ding hurriedly restrained her movements. "Miranda, what do you think you're doing? If they won't tell me, I'll go investigate it myself." Miranda Gu's heart was in absolute turmoil. She was terrified that the words she heard in her dream might actually be true. Seeing this, Logan Ding quickly comforted Miranda Gu. "I know who it was. It was a woman who passed away from a sudden shock brought on by heart disease. The hospital cannot disclose the donor's details due to protocols, but right after the surgery was completed, I saw it happen, and I even had my assistant take a sum of money. to compensate her family. The anxiety hanging over Miranda Goo's heart finally settled down, and she lay back onto the hospital bed. With a touch of self-derision, she said, "Logan, do you know? Just now, in the operating room, I had a very long dream. My dream was completely filled with Ethan Lee's silhouette. I actually even dreamed that he was the one who donated his corneas to me. Incredibly ridiculous, isn't it? If it had been any time before this, Logan Ding would have definitely spared no effort to blacken my name. But now he found himself completely unable to speak, because I really was the one who donated the corneas to her, and I had even sacrificed my very life to do so." His palm tightly gripped Miranda Goo's hand. "Miranda, forget about Ethan Lee. Treat all those past memories as a brilliant, beautiful, yet agonizingly painful and deep dream." Miranda Goo closed her eyes, and it took a long time before she slowly nodded. She truly needed to move forward. "Ethan Lee, from this day forward, I am going to erase you from my memory completely." A week later, Miranda Goo was discharged from the hospital. She began organizing and preparing for her wedding with Logan Ding. Information regarding their wedding announcement spread across the entire internet like wildfire. Yet the closer the wedding date approached, the more suffocating Miranda Goo's heart felt. The thought of calling off the wedding and going to England to search for me even surfaced in her mind countless times. However, every single time this thought barely began to show itself, she would forcefully crush it down. She told herself that Logan was the one who had saved her life, and Logan was the one who stayed by her side through the darkest, lowest moments of her life. She couldn't do right by Logan by betraying him. Gradually, she learned to use alcohol to numb herself. Only in this way could she avoid feeling the excruciating pain. After getting heavily drunk yet again, Miranda Goo held Logan Ding, weeping in agony. "I loved you so deeply, so why did you have to be so heartless to me? I could have forgiven you for abandoning me back then, and I could have chosen not to care about everything that happened between you and Natalie Liu in England. Ethan, come back to my side. I went ahead and made the wedding dress you designed. You saw it that day, didn't you? Was it exactly like the way you once described it? When I was designing this wedding dress, I envisioned myself putting it on and marrying you countless times. Ethan, I have wealth and power now. I can turn every single dream you ever wanted into reality. Why did you still choose Natalie Liu instead of me? Why? Why?" Miranda Goo, her eyes blurred with intoxication, clutched Logan Ding's hand, unceasingly begging him for an answer. At this moment, Logan Ding's heart didn't feel any better either. He had known all along that Miranda Goo was profoundly in love with me. Even as she masked it incredibly well during the day, he still knew that her heart had never truly forgotten me for a single moment. After bringing the drunk Miranda Goo back home, Logan Ding stepped out of the villa. He lifted his head to look up at the pitch-black sky. They all say that after a person dies, they turn into a star in the sky. Ethan Lee, have you turned into a star now too? Ethan Lee, just what kind of a person were you really? Previously, he had felt that I was just a freeloading scumbag, someone driven by materialism and vanity. But after that recent corneal transplant incident, Logan Ding vaguely sensed that they had completely misunderstood me all along, and that there might be a hidden, unknown truth buried behind it all. But now, he felt there was no longer any need to dig deeper, because I was already dead, and the dead cannot be brought back to life. The truth, as far as they were concerned, might only end up becoming a source of torment. Taking the wedding as a deadline, Logan Ding set a timeline for himself in his heart. If Miranda Goo could truly hold his hand and walk into the wedding hall with him, then he would love her and cherish her at all costs, using the rest of his life to keep her warm. If the two of them ultimately failed to get married, it would only prove that they were fated to cross paths but not be together. He would then let go and tell Miranda Goo the truth about me donating my corneas. 3 days before the wedding, the relatives from both the Goo and Ding families gathered together. To prepare various matters for the day of the wedding, Miranda Goo had lost both of her parents at a young age and was sent to an orphanage, so the number of relatives she kept in touch with was incredibly small. The Ding family, on the other hand, was a massive clan, and many relatives living abroad had returned to attend the wedding. Logan Ding's cousin had made a special trip back from England, and he even brought back his own girlfriend to meet his brother and sister-in-law. "This is my girlfriend, Natalie Liu." The atmosphere in the room instantly fell dead silent. Miranda Gu's gaze locked dead onto Natalie Lou. You're his girlfriend? Then what about Ethan? Natalie Lou felt an eerie sensation, as if she were being stared down by a cold, venomous viper. She recognized Miranda Gu as well, and couldn't help but marvel at how small the world really was. Back then, she had accepted my request to put on a performance with me, acting out a blatant cheating scene right in front of her. Now, she was actually about to become sisters-in-law with Miranda Gu. Thinking back to what happened back then, she felt a bit awkward at this moment. Forcing a laugh, she said, Ethan? That was ages ago. He and I broke up a long time ago. Justin is my true love. But the moment those words left her mouth, Miranda Gu swung her hand and delivered a fierce slap right across her face. 1 minute you're kicking Ethan back to England, and the next you're claiming someone else is your true love. Today, I'm going to teach you a proper lesson. You too? Timing, two-faced bitch? Natalie Lou was completely stunned by the sudden slap, but she wasn't a pushover either. The moment she snapped out of it, she immediately retaliated with a slap of her own. Stop spouting nonsense and slandering me. My feelings for Justin are genuine. When did I ever double deal or two-time anyone? Logan Ding and Justin Ding hurriedly rushed over to break up the fight. Miranda Gu grabbed her by the collar, demanding answers in a freezing cold voice. You keep claiming your feelings for him are genuine. Then where does that leave Ethan? Since you didn't love him, why did you take him away from my side back then? Why did you take him out of the country? Seeing that Miranda Gu spoke with such solid evidence and conviction, Justin Ding couldn't help but look at Natalie Lou as well. Did you really do something behind my back to betray me? Natalie Lou wrenched herself free from Miranda Gu's grip, saying textually to Justin, Justin, do you really have to question my sincerity toward you? Justin Ding's eyes still held a highly skeptical attitude. Then what is she talking about? At this point, Natalie Lou could no longer care about anything else, and blurted out the absolute truth of what happened back then. Everything that happened back then was nothing but a show Ethan Lee hired me to perform. Hearing this, Miranda Gu froze completely on the spot. What? Back then, Ethan said he needed to leave you for a while, but he was terrified that you would keep pursuing him. So he begged me to put on a cheating performance with him, just to get rid of you. He and I never did absolutely anything back then. As for what you said about me taking him abroad, that was also just an excuse he manufactured to completely break away from you. Justin Ding added, Natalie and I have been together in England for 3 years, and I have never once seen any other guy appear around her. After processing Natalie Lou's words, Miranda Gu asked once more, her voice trembling with uncertainty. Are you saying that back then, the whole thing about Ethan cheating on me behind my back with you was fake? And him going to England with you was fake too? That's right. Receiving Natalie Lou's definitive confirmation, Miranda Gu immediately turned around and marched straight outside. Since everything back then was a lie, then what I said recently about making up with Natalie Lou and wanting to go back to England must definitely have been a lie as well. Where exactly had I been over these past 3 years? Why did I have to deceive her like that? Miranda Gu had far too many burning questions in her mind right now, and only by finding me could she get those answers. But just as she stepped out of the hotel, Logan Ding chased after her. Miranda, are you going to look for Ethan Lee? Facing Logan Ding, Miranda Gu felt an immense wave of guilt in her heart. Logan, I'm only looking for him to demand a clear explanation of the truth back then. I just want to know why he lied to me. Logan Ding asked with a dead serious expression. And after you get your explanation, will you still marry me? Miranda Gu's lips moved slightly, but from beginning to end, she was completely incapable of giving an affirmative answer. Logan, I can't think about absolutely anything right now. I just want to find Ethan as fast as possible. A bitter smile appeared on the corners of Logan Ding's lips. I think I already know your answer. Since things had already been spelled out to this point, Miranda Gu stopped hiding it, and said directly, Logan, I'm sorry. I will personally visit the Ding family later to offer my formal apologies to your parents. Having said that, she pulled out her phone to call her assistant, ordering them to track down my current whereabouts. Logan Ding spoke in a heavy, somber voice. Miranda, there's no need to look for him. I know exactly where Ethan Lee is. A surge of pure joy rushed into Miranda Gu's heart. She didn't even have the spare capacity to wonder why Logan Ding would happen to have information on my whereabouts, and asked with desperate anticipation, Where? Where is Ethan? Logan Ding took a deep breath and said slowly, He's dead. Ethan Lee is already dead. Miranda Gu's face instantly turned deathly pale. Logan, I am the one who did you wrong. Why do you have to put a curse on Ethan like that? Logan Ding shook his head, spitting out the brutal, unvarnished reality. I am not cursing him. He is truly dead. On the exact same day you got into that car accident, the corneas you received were donated by him. Miranda Gu's body swayed violently, and she nearly collapsed face first onto the ground. Impossible, impossible. You're lying to me. Ethan won't die. But the words the doctor had spoken back, in the operating room that day, began to replay over and over again inside her mind. The corneal transplant surgery was a success. The donor, Ethan Lee, has passed away. Miranda Gu raised her hands and slammed them painfully against her own head. So, the reality she experienced that day really wasn't an illusion. In the very next second, a mouthful of fresh blood erupted directly from Miranda Gu's mouth. Her entire body collapsed onto the ground, her mouth soundlessly muttering a single phrase over and over. I was the one who killed Ethan. I was the one who killed Ethan. Logan Ding immediately dialed 911 and rushed Miranda Gu straight to the hospital. After emergency resuscitation, Miranda Gu was out of immediate danger. But as she lay on the hospital bed, it looked as if her very soul had been completely ripped out of her body, leaving behind absolutely zero signs of life. With bloodshot eyes, Logan Ding sat by Miranda Gu's side, grasping her hand as he said, Miranda, pull yourself together. Ethan Lee wasn't killed by you. He didn't have much time left to live to begin with. This single sentence finally triggered a slight reaction from Miranda Gu. She lifted her eyes to look toward Logan Ding. What do you mean, he didn't have much time left to live to begin with? Logan Ding's voice cracked with emotion. That day, Ethan Lee rushed all the way to the hospital, claiming that he wanted to donate his corneas to you. At first, Dr. Liu refused on the grounds that harvesting from a living person was illegal, but he pulled out a scalpel and held it straight against his own neck, saying that he was going to die anyway, and if a dead body was an absolute requirement, then he would just kill himself right then and there. Later on, the hospital had him sign a liability waiver, before they finally agreed to perform the donation surgery for you. During the procedure, he went into shock due to heart failure and passed away. The moment he died, people from a funeral service center immediately arrived to collect his remains, stating that he had already made the arrangements 10 days prior, which was the exact same day the two of you reunited. He had already reserved his own funeral. So, Miranda, Ethan Lee wasn't killed by you. Hearing this, Miranda Gu froze completely. From Ethan Lee's betrayal 3 years ago to their reunion 3 years later, every single event kept flashing continuously through Miranda Gu's mind. She felt as though the answer she wanted was right before her eyes, yet she could never see it clearly. Finally, she captured a key figure, Dr. Liu. Supporting herself against the hospital bed, Miranda Gu stood up and ordered her assistant waiting outside the door, Bring Dr. Liu to me. Before long, Dr. Liu was brought before Miranda Gu. Miss Gu. Miss Gu, what can I do for you? Miranda Gu narrowed her eyes, casting a sharp, piercing gaze at him. I want to know absolutely everything about Ethan Lee. Dr. Liu feigned a bewildered expression. I don't know anything about him, Mr. Lee. Has Miss Gu perhaps approached the wrong person? Within Miranda Gu's weak voice, there was a heavy, commanding authority. Dr. Liu, you are a smart man. I do not wish to use force against you. Dr. Liu looked at the woman before him who, despite her illness, still maintained an incredibly powerful aura. He couldn't help but remember Ethan Lee's sorrowful expression and his desperate pleading. Miss Gu, sometimes people shouldn't cling too stubbornly to the past. It's better to remain in the dark. Miranda Gu clenched her fingers tightly, the veins on the back of her hand subtly bulging, as she said word for word, What if I insist on being stubborn? Dr. Liu let out a soft sigh. Very well. Mr. Lee loved you so deeply, his love deserves to be known by you, rather than being buried forever beneath the earth with him. Miss Gu, 3 years ago, when you suffered sudden heart failure, the youth who donated his heart to you was a person in a vegetative state. Do you know who his father is? Miranda Gu nodded. I remember his father was the director of a pharmaceutical research laboratory. Because I received his son's heart, I was able to live in this world again. After Miranda Gu's business became successful, she would donate a massive sum of money to that laboratory every year to support their experimental research. Dr. Liu spoke in a heavy, somber voice. Arthur Tong is a pharmaceutical maniac. His mother died of ALS, so his lifelong wish was to successfully research and develop a breakthrough drug to cure ALS. When the laboratory was first established, due to a lack of funding and a shortage of personnel, he did not hesitate to use his own biological son for drug experiments, which is how he ended up ruining his son and turning him into a vegetable. For human drug trials, what is needed most are living human beings to act as test subjects. 3 years ago, you desperately needed his son's heart for a life-saving transplant, and he targeted exactly that point. Therefore, he proposed a condition to Mr. Li. As an exchange, hearing up to this point, Miranda Gu's pupils contracted in shock, an answer instinctively surfacing in her heart, as her voice trembled uncontrollably. What condition? He demanded that Mr. Li voluntarily become a human test subject for his experimental drugs. Having been a living test subject for 3 whole years, those unknown drugs had long since completely destroyed Mr. Li's health. With his entire body suffering from multiple organ failure due to drug corrosion, he could no longer serve as a subject for the drug research, which is why Arthur Tong finally released him from the laboratory. Having heard the entire progression of the event, Logan Ding, who was standing to the side, was also completely shocked. He never expected the truth of the matter to be like this. Ethan Lai's love for Miranda Gu was actually so profoundly deep, loving her to the point of not hesitating to trade his own life for hers. It felt as if an invisible hand had violently squeezed Miranda Gu's heart, making the pain so intense that she couldn't breathe. Ethan, my Ethan. He had done so much for her, and endured so much agonizing pain, but what had she done? She held a grudge against him, and to force him to submit, she constantly humiliated and tormented him. Right now, Miranda Gu only wished she could go back in time and kill her past self. But before that, she had to avenge Ethan. Her eyes were blood red, and her entire demeanor resembled a king of hell from the underworld. Grit-toothed, she spat out, "Arthur Tong, I will make you pay for this debt in blood." After receiving an invitation from the Gu Corporation, Arthur Tong immediately brought along his contracts to attend the meeting. The Gu Corporation was actually going to sponsor them with $10 billion this time to conduct drug research. Arthur Tong was ecstatic. With this $10 billion in funding, he firmly believed it would be more than enough to support him, until he successfully researched and developed the breakthrough treatment for ALS. By then, he would be a famous figure for generations, a great man written into the history books. It was just that the location for this meeting wasn't like usual. It wasn't at the Gu Corporation's office, but was scheduled at Miranda Gu's private residence instead. Furthermore, he was the only person invited. At this moment, Arthur Tong was completely blinded by the massive joy. This slight point of suspicion was quickly ignored by him. Miranda Gu personally received Arthur Tong, giving Arthur Tong a sense of being deeply overwhelmed by her hospitality. She picked up the wine glass in front of her, grazed it slightly toward Arthur Tong, and said in a dead tone, "Director Tong, please don't be polite, just make yourself at home." Arthur Tong hastily picked up the wine glass in front of him. "President Gu is truly magnanimous and generous. Please accept my deepest respect for your donation to our research institute." Watching him drain the wine in a single gulp, a faint smile appeared on Miranda Gu's face as she spoke. Speaking of generosity, back then, if Director Tong hadn't generously donated your son's heart to me, how could the me of today possibly exist? Not at all, not at all. A healer possesses a benevolent heart. I can also be considered a member of the medical community, so naturally, I wouldn't just watch someone die without saving them. Miranda Gu slammed the glass in her hand violently onto the floor. What a fine line. A healer possesses a benevolent heart. I would like to ask Director Tong, is using healthy, living human beings for drug experiments what you call a benevolent heart? Arthur Tong was startled by Miranda Gu's sudden action, and at this moment, he also sensed that something was wrong. Standing up, he said, "President Gu, I don't know what you are talking about. It seems today's contract cannot be discussed for the time being. I will be leaving now. After saying that, he immediately turned around to leave, only to discover upon reaching the entrance that the door had been locked dead. At the exact same time, the strength in his limbs felt as if it had been completely drained away, leaving him unable to even stand firmly. Miranda Goose stood up unhurriedly, holding a razor-sharp scalpel in her hand, playing with it as she walked toward Arthur Tong. With his back pressed against the wall, Arthur Tong's eyes were entirely filled with terror. President Gu, let's talk things through properly. Is it possible that you have some kind of misunderstanding? Miranda Gu clapped her hands, and directly on the wall in front of them, a massive portrait of Ethan Lee rolled down. Arthur Tong back then. The condition you set before agreeing to let your son donate his heart to me. Do you still remember it? Ethan was tortured by you in your research institute for 3 whole years. And now you're telling me it's a misunderstanding? Staring at the portrait of Ethan Lee, Arthur Tong recalled the events of back then. At that time, the research institute lacked sufficient funding, and even more so because of a severe shortage of trial subjects. There was no clinical data, causing the experiment to be completely unable to progress. It just so happened that this boy came to look for him. He knelt down in front of him, begging him to donate his vegetative son's heart to his lover. He said he was willing to work like a slave, to repay him for the rest of his life. Arthur Tong then proposed the condition for him to come to the institute as a drug test subject. Until just a short while ago, because of the long-term drug testing, the various functions of his body had severely failed, leaving him no longer able to undertake the trial work before he finally approved his release from the research institute. A sinister smile appeared on Miranda Gu's face. Arriving right in front of Arthur Tong, she raised her hand and fiercely stabbed the blade deep into his shoulder. Arthur Tong let out a blood-curdling scream, the intense pain dragging his sanity back. He looked at Miranda Gu and pleaded, President Gu, becoming a test subject back then was entirely his own choice. I did not force him into it at all. Miranda Gu gripped the handle of the knife and pressed it down a few fractions deeper against him. Her eyes gradually grew frantic. He was a willing participant. Well, I was not willing. I would rather have died myself than have him save me in this kind of way. Arthur Tong broke out in a cold sweat from the intense pain, his legs no longer able to support his weight, as he collapsed directly onto the floor. President Gu, spare my life. Spare my life, please. Miranda Gu pulled out the knife. I can spare your life. But did you ever show mercy to Ethan? A healthy human being was tortured alive by you until his body failed and he died. Today, I am going to make you pay for his life with yours. Miranda Gu gripped the knife and plunged it back in fiercely. Before long, Arthur Tong's body had been stabbed with countless bleeding holes, yet every single strike deliberately avoided his vital areas. Arthur Tong's entire body was racked with pain, twitching and curling up into a tight ball, as his mouth continuously begged Miranda Gu for mercy. President Gu, I really did not know he was so important to you. Otherwise, even if you lent me 10 times my courage, I wouldn't have dared to use him as a test subject. You are successful in your career now, and you have a wonderful fiancé staying by your side. There is absolutely no need to throw away the rest of your life for a pathetic, worthless life like mine. Miranda Gu's gaze fell upon him with absolute indifference. No matter what you say today, you will not escape your fate of death. She raised the knife with her hand, aiming directly at the location of Arthur Tong's heart, intending to deliver the final blow. The door was suddenly pushed open from the outside. After Logan Ding took in everything inside the room, he directly reached out and grabbed Miranda Gu's wrist. The tip of the blade hovered right over Arthur Tong's heart. He spoke with frantic urgency. Miranda, don't be impulsive. Arthur Tong illegally used living people for drug research. The law will naturally punish him. If you kill him right now, then you will be a murderer. You absolutely must not do something so foolish. Miranda Gu flung Logan Ding's hand off, her eyes completely clouded over with a dead silence. Logan, what exactly do you mean by foolish? Ethan became a human drug test subject just to save my life, yet he didn't dare to let me know, preferring to fabricate a story about cheating, just to make me misunderstand him and hate him. Would you call that foolish? Knowing he didn't have much time left to live, he still chose to donate his corneas to me. and ended up dying in the operating room in the end. Would you call that foolish? He obviously loved me so much, and gave up absolutely everything for me. Yet I didn't even know that he had died, and was even grandly preparing for a wedding with someone else. Would you call that foolish? He played the fool for my sake so many times. What does it matter if I play the fool for him just this once? Logan Ding shook his head, his tears falling like rain. Miranda, Mr. Lee did so much for you. Precisely because he wanted you to live a good life. You must not let down his hopes. I am only willing to live if he is alive. The moment she finished speaking, Miranda Gu raised the knife to strike down. Logan Ding screamed loudly, Miranda! Do you want to go to hell after you die and be separated from Mr. Lee? For all eternity? The trajectory of the knife veered off course, stabbing straight into the area right next to Arthur Tong's heart. Miranda Gu hesitated. She looked toward Logan Ding. Will there really be a next life? This current life was already destined to be filled with pure darkness for her. Ethan was dead, so it was no longer possible for her to be together with Ethan. She wanted to have a next life with Ethan. Seeing the situation, Logan Ding took a deep breath and said, There is. There definitely is. Furthermore, since Mr. Lee was such a kind-hearted person, he will definitely go to heaven after he dies. If your hands are covered in blood, how will you ever be able to find him if you go to hell? He reached out to take the scalpel away from Miranda Gu's hand, saying slowly, Arthur Tong harmed Mr. Lee so terribly, we should make him live a half-dead life, enduring torment every single day, rather than letting him die such a quick and painless death. Miranda Gu glanced indifferently at Arthur Tong, who was currently lying unconscious on the floor. She called over the bodyguards to cut out his tongue, ordering them to send him to the hospital just to keep him alive. Ethan had endured 3 years of torment. She was going to make Arthur Tong pay it back 100-fold, 1,000-fold. Afterward, Miranda Gu led her men to smash Arthur Tong's drug research laboratory to pieces. Through the surveillance footage, she truly got to witness what kind of life Ethan Lee had been living here over these past 3 years. When he first arrived on the very first day, Ethan was still the same youth, from her memories, who loved to smile. But the researchers here didn't treat him like a human being at all. Viewing him merely as a research specimen, they repeatedly drew his blood, made him take experimental drugs, and ran laboratory tests on him. Day after day, he took drugs just to provide them with data. No one cared about the agonizing pain he suffered from the chemicals. Due to the erosion caused by the medication, Ethan Lee's face grew paler and sicker by the day, and his spirit grew weaker and more listless by the day. At the very end of the video logs, my body was already extremely exhausted, completely unable to withstand the corrosive nature of the drugs. My entire body was rolling and thrashing on the floor in pure agony. But even so, my mouth kept continuously calling out her name, Miranda. It hurts so much, Miranda. I miss you so much. Miranda Gu couldn't restrain herself. She reached out to caress that tiny silhouette on the screen. How she wished she could smooth out my tightly furrowed brow and endure all of that agonizing pain in my place. Tears of deep remorse and excruciating sorrow flowed continuously down her cheeks. She intensely hated herself for failing to notice anything wrong with me. When I went to find her, at that time, she had been entirely consumed by anger and hatred, humiliating and tormenting me just to make me submit, wanting to hear me voice my regret, and wanting to find any remnants of love left within me. But time after time, the disappointment made her hate me, hating me for being heartless, and hating me for discarding our many years of shared affection. And now she finally understood. It wasn't that I didn't love her, but rather that I loved her far too much. That was why I used such heartless words, just to mask the love I held for her deep within my soul. Miranda Gu located the room where I used to live at the Research Institute. It was a space so small that it could only fit a single bed, without even a single window. I had spent 3 whole years inside this place. She curled her entire body up, lying down on that tiny bed, as if by doing this she could still feel the warmth of my body, and feel the burning yet unutterable love of her partner. Ethan, I miss you so much. In a daze, the scene of the time she confessed her feelings to me surfaced before her eyes once again. At that time, we had just turned 18. According to the regulations, we could no longer reside in the orphanage, having lived inside it for over a decade. Our belongings were pitifully sparse. Carrying my luggage, I kept looking back at the orphanage with every few steps, saying to her, "Miranda, I've lived in the orphanage since the moment I was born. This place is my home. Now, I feel as if I am being abandoned all over again, and my heart feels incredibly heavy." Miranda Goo hesitated for a few seconds, then raised her hand to grasp my hand, saying, "You still have me. I am your family too. I will never abandon you." I swiped my hand free from her grip, saying in a slightly jealous tone, "If you find a boyfriend in the future, you'll definitely throw me right to the back of your mind. Just the other day, I saw that school heartthrob confessing his feelings to you." She reached out to grasp my hand once again and said, "I turned him down." I turned my back to her and ignored her, saying, "Even if you turn down that specific heartthrob, there will definitely be other heartthrobs showing up in the future. Sooner or later, there will come a day when you say yes." At that time, I had just turned 18, experiencing the very first stirrings of young love, and the roots of my feelings for Miranda Goo had long since dug deep into my heart. But from the beginning, she had only shown me a family-like care. Unsure of her true feelings toward me, I didn't dare to ask, yet I was terrified of her being stolen away by someone else. Miranda Goo understood exactly what I meant. Smiling, she said, "I actually have a permanent solution to this that will ensure that even if I get a boyfriend in the future, I will never abandon you." She hugged me directly and said, "Ethan, become my boyfriend. Let's take our relationship as family one step further, so that we can appear on the exact same household register in the future, okay?" This single sentence left me completely stunned, and in the end, I nodded my head with a blushing face. Later on, we opened our hearts to each other, discovering that we had both long since chosen the other person. Miranda Goo even teased me, saying she had been afraid of scaring me before, which was why she originally planned to wait until we started college to confess. "I didn't expect you to be in such a rush. If I hadn't confessed right then, he probably would have burst into tears." Our very first kiss was right next to Swan Lake on our college campus. It was Christmas Day, and we had just returned from working a part-time job outside. It was already almost midnight. I was walking her back to the girls' dormitory. When we passed by Swan Lake, I pulled a little knitted apple out of my bag and gave it to her. She accepted it with a smile, but I said rather unsatisfactorily, "Today is Christmas. Didn't you prepare a gift for me at all?" Miranda Goo was so busy running around every day that her head spun. She really hadn't paid attention to these holiday surprises. But because she didn't want to disappoint me, she said, "Wait 30 minutes for me. I'll be right back." As she spoke, she was about to run off to buy me a gift. I pulled her back and said, "There's no need. I already have the gift I want." I lowered my head and slowly leaned in close to her. Even until now, Miranda Goo clearly remembered how proactive I was that night, and my shy, blushing cheeks. I didn't know how much time had passed before Miranda Goo's phone rang, jolting her awake from her memories. Her assistant's ecstatic voice came from the other end of the line. "President Goo? I found it." After learning the news of my death, Miranda Goo had sent people to the funeral center to track down the whereabouts of my ashes. But the staff at the funeral center stated that I had signed a confidentiality agreement during my lifetime, so they would not disclose any information about me. Miranda Goo had to use some aggressive measures before she finally learned that during my lifetime, the package I had reserved at the funeral center was a lavender flower burial in Provence. However, the exact location remained unknown, so she sent her assistant to Provence to search, while she stayed behind to help exact revenge for me. Now that my ashes had been found, she thought she could finally be together with me forever. "Ethan, I only hope your footsteps are a bit slower so you can wait for me." The assistant hurriedly said, "President Goo, it's not ashes. Mr. Lee is not dead. He is currently in the city of X." 30 minutes later, a private jet took off from Capital City. Its destination was Aix, Provence. "Mr. Lee, why didn't you call for me when you came out? What if you were to trip and fall?" A faint curve formed on the corner of my lips. Staring blankly ahead with sightless eyes, I said, "I woke up and just wanted to come out to catch the scent of the flowers. I've already become very familiar with this place over the past few days. It's not that easy for me to fall." Back then in the operating room, I had been pronounced dead by the doctor due to cardiac shock. But when the staff members from the funeral center took charge of my body and headed toward the cremation chamber, My heart unexpectedly and slowly resumed its beating. Having escaped from the jaws of death, I didn't feel thrilled, because I knew that death would ultimately be my final destination. I didn't know what meaning God had in letting me live. These few extra days, I asked the staff members from the funeral center to bring me to Provence, to silently await my death here. The moment those words left my mouth, my legs gave out from a lack of strength, and I collapsed onto the ground. Chloe immediately helped me up, guiding me to sit down on an adjacent bench. "Mr. Lee, your body is weak. You should just stay seated." I fished a bank card out of my clothes pocket, fumbling around to place it into Chloe's hand, and said, "Chloe, thank you so much for taking care of me these past few days. I have a premonition that my time will come within the next 2 days. There are still tens of thousands of dollars left in this card. Consider it a small token of appreciation for your hard work." Chloe hurriedly waved her hands in refusal. Realizing that I couldn't see, she pushed the card back into my hand and said, "There's no need. Mr. Lee, taking care of you is my job to begin with. Furthermore, I feel a real connection with you. Taking care of you is entirely of my own free will." I placed the card into her hand once again, saying, "I am an orphan, and I'm about to die anyway. This money is completely useless to me. If you really don't want it, then I beg you to wait until after I die, and donate this money to the orphanage in Capital City." Because I phrased it that way, Chloe had no choice but to accept the money, stating solemnly, "Mr. Lee, please rest assured, I will absolutely convey your kindness to the children at the orphanage." I let out a soft smile and said, "Thank you." Chloe sat down beside me, leaning close to me as she asked, "Mr. Lee, do you believe that people truly go to heaven after they die?" "Why do you ask that?" Chloe replied, "I recently watched a terribly tragic, idle drama. It stole so many of my tears. In the end, the male lead died, and he made a promise with the female lead that he would wait for her in heaven after death." My voice sounded gentle as I said, "When I was little, I always heard the house mothers at the orphanage say that those who did no evil during their lifetimes and possessed pure souls would go to heaven after they died." Chloe said with absolute certainty, "Then a person as kind-hearted as Mr. Lee will definitely be able to go to heaven after death." My tone carried a sense of yearning. "I've heard that heaven is a world free of sorrow and free of pain. In that place, there is only eternal happiness. But can a world without Miranda Goo truly be happy?" I wasn't sure. I grew up in an orphanage from the time I was a child. The children there all kept identical hairstyles, wore identical clothes, had fixed activity times every single day, and ate fixed meals. Life was completely dead and stagnant, until that year when I was 7 years old, and Miranda Goo arrived at the orphanage. She was wearing a white dress, and her beautiful, small, curly hair was completely different from everyone else's. She instantly captured my attention. That night, I discovered her hiding all by herself under her blanket, secretly weeping. I pulled back her blanket and asked her why she was crying. Children who grew up in an orphanage matured early. They stopped crying at a very young age, because they knew that crying couldn't solve any problems. With tears still clinging to her eyelashes, Miranda Goo stared blankly at me and said, "I miss my mom and dad." "But your mom and dad don't want you anymore." In my subconscious mind, only children who were abandoned by their parents would be sent to an orphanage. This single sentence made her cry even louder. Having no other choice, I pulled out a milk candy that I had treasured for a very long time, unwrapped it, and shoved it right into her mouth, which finally managed to halt her crying. This was the very first step of us becoming best friends. Only later on did I find out that Miranda Goo had been sent to the orphanage because her parents had died in a sudden accident. But for those of us who had been abandoned from birth, it didn't really matter, because in our previous reality, we were the same anyway, since neither of us had parents. Miranda Goo would tell me about many aspects of life outside the orphanage that I had never experienced. Because of this, I was extraordinarily fond of sticking close to her, and my heart was filled with yearning for the outside world. During our 11 years in the orphanage, we were each other's sole reliance and family. The year we turned 18, she confessed her feelings to me, and we successfully passed the exams to enter the exact same university together. During our junior year, Miranda Goo earned her first pot of gold by writing software programs, and she bought a small 3-bedroom apartment. From that moment on, we had a home of our own. Inside that apartment, Miranda Goo and I shared our very first intimate night together. Afterward, she leaned against my shoulder, watching me as I designed a wedding dress for the two of us. We planned to get married right after graduation and have 2 adorable children after our marriage, forming a happy family of 4. Unfortunately, fate loves to play tricks on people. We had been companions for 15 years. Miranda Goo occupied the entirety of my life's journey. Even if I reached heaven, I wouldn't be happy without her. I began to envy the male protagonist Chloe had spoken about. Although he died, he shared a heavenly promise with the woman he loved most. Yet I had absolutely nothing, and I didn't even dare to let Miranda Goo know about my impending death. "Mr. Lee, why are you crying?" Chloe asked, looking at me as tears streamed down my face. I hurriedly raised my hand to wipe away the tears on my face, saying, "It's nothing." The wind is strong, and it blew something into my eyes. At this moment, there wasn't even a single breath of wind, but Chloe didn't expose my lie. She knew that I was nowhere near as at peace and calm as I appeared on the surface. When facing life and death, who could avoid feeling anxious and terrified? Furthermore, I was still so young. Chloe couldn't help but lament that the heavens were unfair, that a person as kind and gentle as me, to think his life would be cut so short. "Mr. Lee, let me read the news to you." This was one of our daily routines. Because I was blind, Chloe would always pick out some fun and amusing news stories to read aloud to me. She pulled out her phone, scrolled through it, and cleared her throat. A married couple fantasized about winning a $5 million lottery and ended up getting into a massive fistfight over how to divide the money. A student named Lee found a girlfriend online who still retained her youthful charm, only to discover upon meeting in person that she was actually his roommate's mother. A robber stole over $10,000 in cash, but then had it stolen from him by a pickpocket, prompting him to call the police in a fit of rage. She read several stories in a row, but I merely twitched the corners of my mouth to humor her. Without any genuine laughter, she noticed that I was exceptionally downcast today. "Mr. Lee, what's wrong with you today? Are you feeling unwell somewhere?" I shook my head and said, "I just didn't sleep well last night." In reality, it wasn't that I hadn't slept well, but rather that I hadn't slept at all last night, because today was Miranda Goo and Logan Ding's wedding day. Today, the woman I loved most was getting married, but the groom was not me. "Well, how about I help you inside to rest for a bit?" I still shook my head, and as if having made up my mind, I said, "Chloe, could you help me tune into the live broadcast of the wedding between Capital City's Miranda Goo and the Ding family's young master, Logan Ding?" Chloe was puzzled, but she still complied and asked, "Mr. Lee, why are you looking for a live stream of their wedding? Back when I was in Capital City, I heard that their wedding was going to be incredibly luxurious, costing hundreds of millions just for the setup. So I wanted to see it." Realizing that I could no longer see, I corrected myself. I wanted to hear just how luxurious their wedding really is, and treat it as a way to satisfy my own yearning for a wedding. Chloe entered a live stream room of a somewhat famous internet influencer. To ensure I could hear clearly, she turned the volume up to the maximum. The influencer spoke directly into the camera. "Welcome, all you viewers who just joined the live stream. Lego. Today, I will be broadcasting live for everyone the luxurious wedding of Capital City's tech icon, Miranda Goo, and the young master of the Ding family, Logan Ding." The camera panned around, and the host began her introduction. "I heard that President Goo's partner is extremely fond of lavender, so the theme of the entire wedding is centered around a soft purple hue. Even the chandeliers in the banquet hall are made of luxurious amethyst." The host introduced the wedding venue in an endless stream of words, going over everything piece by piece, from the air-freighted fresh flowers to the silk red carpet in the center of the stage. I listened intently, and the scene of the wedding venue had already surfaced within my mind. An hour later, Logan Ding, dressed in his groom's attire, appeared at the wedding venue. At the entrance, the female host let out a soft exclamation of surprise. "They're here! They're here!" The groom and bride are about to take the stage. Viewers, make sure to stay locked into my livestream room. Don't swipe away. Logan Ding stepped onto the red carpet wearing a black suit, walking toward the stage with a resolute gaze. The host said in a bewildered tone, "That's really strange. How come there's only the groom and no sign of the bride? And didn't rumors online previously claim that their wedding attire was also lavender-themed, personally designed by Miranda Goo herself? Why is it that today Logan Ding is only wearing a standard, ordinary suit? Logan Ding walked to the exact center of the stage, took the microphone, and looked toward the guests below. Welcome, friends and relatives, who have traveled from afar to attend our wedding today. I would like to express my most sincere gratitude to all of you here. Before the banquet begins, I have a piece of news to announce to everyone, and that is, today's wedding is cancelled. The moment this news was delivered, the crowd below erupted into an absolute uproar. Canceling a wedding right at the marriage venue sounded completely absurd. Everyone began whispering and debating, and the female host also commented in shock. The bride is nowhere to be seen at the wedding venue, leaving the groom all by his lonesome self at the wedding banquet hall to announce the cancellation of the wedding. There's absolutely some massive, earth-shattering gossip buried in this. Could it be that the bride cheated right before the wedding? I was also completely stunned by the shock. How could their wedding possibly be cancelled? Why hadn't Miranda Gu appeared at the wedding? All sorts of wild conjectures flooded into my mind. Logan Ding held the microphone and continued. This cancellation of the wedding is a mutual decision made by both Miranda and myself. In our view, marriage is an incredibly sacred matter. On the eve of the wedding, we discovered that we are not the most suitable partners for each other. One cannot simply settle or compromise in a marriage. This is something we both completely agree on. Therefore, to avoid stepping into the fortress of marriage only to become emotionally detached, and eventually part ways, we decided to put a timely stop to this mistake. Logan Ding delivered a deep bow toward the audience below. Once again, thank you all for your presence here today. Miranda has already stated that all expenses for this banquet will be entirely covered by her. Everyone should just view this banquet as a large gathering among friends. A reporter who had managed to sneak in asked a sharp question. Mr. Ding! Since canceling the wedding banquet was a mutual decision between you and President Gu, then why is she nowhere to be seen at this banquet? Leaving only you to come out alone? Facing an event of such magnitude. Yesterday, before boarding the plane, Miranda Gu had called Logan Ding, stating that she was going to Provence to look for me. As for the wedding between the two of them, she would have her assistant release the cancellation statement through her personal account. When the time came, all the online backlash and rumors would be directed entirely at her body, ensuring that he could walk away completely unscathed from this broken engagement. But Logan Ding refused, telling her to focus on finding me with peace of mind, and not to have any lingering worries. He could handle the matters regarding the wedding just fine by himself. He wanted to stand guard for the very last shift, on behalf of his own unrequited love. Therefore, he had still put on a formal suit. In this lifetime, it could be considered that he had married her once. His love for Miranda Gu couldn't compare to mine, but he absolutely refused to let his love appear too inferior. With a polite smile on his face, Logan Ding said, I don't view this as some sort of massive crisis. I believe I am fully capable of handling it well. As for Miranda, she has a far more important matter to attend to. That matter is more critical to her than her very life. As her friend, I naturally will support her with all my might. Logan's father led the rest of the family onto the stage to back Logan Ding up, quickly leaving the reporters completely speechless. Logan Ding looked at the family members beside him who were supporting him, a wave of warmth surging into his heart. At the exact same time, he also sent out his most sincere blessings to Miranda Gu from the bottom of his heart, hoping she could successfully find me and never be separated from me again. All this time, he had witnessed Miranda Gu's love for me with his own eyes. He used to feel that Miranda Gu loved far too painfully, but only now did he realize that I had actually loved even more painfully. The love between us was a mutual journey. He hoped that the heavens could take pity on this pair of lovers and stop tormenting them any longer. The live stream concluded. Chloe candidly and bluntly grumbled, I can tell that this Mr. Ding is definitely still in love with Miranda Gu. Even under these circumstances, he is still defending her. In my view, Miranda Gu must have definitely had a change of heart. She is a textbook example of a heartless woman. Mr. Lee, don't you agree? My entire mind was completely consumed by the news of Miranda Gu and Logan Ding canceling their wedding, and I hadn't paid any attention to what Chloe was saying at all. Why exactly did they cancel the wedding? Could it be that Miranda Gu had found out about something? Mr. Lee, what's wrong with you? Did you even hear what I just said? Somewhat dazed, I asked, What did you say? Chloe raised her volume and repeated herself once more. I said, For them to cancel the wedding. It must mean Miranda Goo had a change of heart. She is a complete villain. She suddenly let out a sharp shriek, giving me quite a fright. I hurriedly reached out my hands to fumble around. Chloe, what's wrong? Chloe stared at the person who had just appeared before her eyes, looking exhausted from travel, completely rendered speechless by shock. She swore she would never speak ill of anyone behind their back ever again. Who could have ever anticipated the sheer fright of having the missing bride from the wedding suddenly pop up right in front of her eyes? Just as she was about to open her mouth to speak to me, she saw the person who had just arrived wrap me tightly into an embrace, and her eyes widened even more. Suddenly being held by someone, I originally assumed it was Chloe, but within a moment, I realized something was wrong. The person's height and build were vastly different from Chloe's. Who are you? Let me go. The person didn't say a single word, only holding me even tighter. Because of my blindness, my heart had been in a constant state of panic. Just as I was about to struggle, I suddenly felt a warm liquid falling onto the side of my neck. She was crying. Miranda Goo's silhouette instantly flashed across my mind. My voice trembling, I opened my mouth and called out softly, Miranda! Miranda Goo let go of me slightly, her gaze fixed on my face with deep attachment, as she spoke slowly, Ethan, it's me. My heart panicked, and only one single thought remained. She knew. This couldn't happen. In my panic, I pushed her away and turned around, wanting to run, but before I could even take a couple of steps, I tripped and fell to the ground because of my sightless eyes. Miranda Goo quickly chased after me, heartbrokenly gathering me back into her arms. Her voice carried an infinite weight of longing and grievance. Ethan, just how much longer do you plan on pushing me away? I shook my head and said, You shouldn't be here. You should be in Capital City, at your wedding, standing beside Mr. Ding. Why are you here? Ethan, I love you. My love for you has never stopped. Not even for a single day. Please, don't push me away anymore. But I love you, I love you, I love you. At this moment, Miranda Goo didn't want to hear anything else. She only wanted to express her love for me. The longing and love she had suppressed for 3 years completely erupted at this exact moment. I raised my arms and wrapped them tightly around Miranda Goo, my tears falling like rain. But I'm about to die. Miranda, I'm going to die very soon. I wouldn't be able to stay by her side for long. I didn't want her to watch me waste away and die, and even more, I didn't want her to live forever in guilt and sorrow after I was gone. Miranda Goo raised her hand to gently caress my cheek, wiping away the tears covering my face as she said, Ethan, I won't let you die. From now on, even if I have to search heaven and earth, don't you dare think about leaving me behind again. The moment she finished speaking, she pulled me up and led me outside. On her way here, she had already contacted the most authoritative medical experts. She was going to snatch my life back from the jaws of death. Miranda Goo brought me into the car, and we quickly arrived at the hospital. After a battery of examinations, the doctor looked at the medical report in his hands, sighing repeatedly. Every single organ in his body has been severely overdrawn, and there are catastrophic pathologies caused by the long-term consumption of unknown experimental drugs. The fact that he has held out until today is already an absolute miracle. Miranda Goo refused to believe it. She snatched the report directly out of the doctor's hands, stating, Don't you guys claim to have the most advanced medical technology? As long as you can save his life, money is absolutely not an issue. Ms. Goo, please forgive us regarding this gentleman's body. We are truly powerless to help. His system has already reached the point of utter exhaustion, and he could pass away at any. The doctor left the sentence unfinished, but everyone present understood exactly what it meant. Furious, Miranda Goo grabbed the doctor by the collar. You're lying. This is clearly just a reflection of your own incompetence. And yet you dare to place a curse on Ethan? Lying on the hospital bed, I extended my hand and called out Miranda Goo's name. She immediately let go of her grip, rushing to my side to grasp my hand. Ethan, I'm right here. In a weak voice I said, Miranda, take me back. I know my own body best. Don't make things difficult for the doctor anymore. Ethan, don't listen to his nonsense. Your body is completely fine. You will definitely be healthy and live a long, full life. Miranda, take me back. I don't want the final moments of my life to be spent inside a hospital. Miranda Goo coaxed me in a soft, gentle voice. Ethan, be good. This hospital is just incompetent. I'll take you to a different hospital. Miranda, stop lying to yourself. To be able to see you one last time before I die, and to feel your cheek once again. I am already completely satisfied. Refusing to give up hope, Miranda Goo took me to another hospital, but the conclusion remained exactly the same. Every single function of my body had reached its absolute limit. I could pass away at any moment. Because of my fierce insistence, Miranda Goo took me back to the wooden cabin outside the lavender fields. All along the way, she was plagued by an extreme lack of security, holding me tightly, not even daring to blink her eyes once, terrified that in the very next second I would silently close my eyes and leave her forever. Sensing her overwhelming anxiety, I raised my hand, tracing up her arm to cup her cheek, trying to soothe her. Miranda, don't be afraid. Miranda Goo's eyes were bloodshot. Lowering her head to bury her face in my chest, she said, Ethan, why did you have to be so foolish? I would rather have died myself than have you end up like this for my sake. Miranda, if our situations had been reversed 3 years ago, what would you have done? Miranda Goo seriously considered this question, and in the end, there was only one single answer in her mind. If their situations had been reversed 3 years ago, she would have undoubtedly made the exact same choice. Because we loved each other, far more than we loved our own lives. Miranda Goo deliberately countered. I definitely wouldn't have been as foolish as you. I would have married you, and then after you died, I would have forgotten you in a few years and remarried. Pretending to be annoyed, I replied, If I had known that, I wouldn't have saved you. That's right, Ethan, you shouldn't have saved me. A gentle smile rippled across the corners of my mouth as I said, But Miranda, I didn't want you to die. I wanted you to live safely and healthily in this world. Miranda Goo's voice choked with sobs. Ethan, in a world without you, what is the point of me living on? This was exactly what I feared the most, which was why I had never dared to let her find out the truth. Miranda, I need you to promise me something. Even after I die, you must continue to live a good life in this world. I will allow you to mourn for me for 3 years. But after those 3 years, you must marry Mr. Ding and start a family of your own. Seeing that even in this state, I was still solely worried about her future, the tears in Miranda Goo's eyes cascaded down. As she said, Ethan, do you have any idea how cruel those words are? You expect me to watch you die with my own eyes, and then go off to marry someone else and have children? I squeezed her hand tightly, pleading, Miranda! This is the absolute final request of my life. You must promise me. Miranda Goo gripped my hand back tightly and said, Ethan, I will agree to absolutely anything else but that. From the exact moment she learned the truth, she had already made up her mind to live and die together with me from now on. We had promised before that we would stay together for a lifetime. Now, you have endured so much suffering for my sake, how could I possibly abandon you again and let you leave all by yourself? Ethan, whether we go to hell or to heaven, I am accompanying you to the very end. Tears slid down from my eyes one by one. As I said, how can you be so foolish? Why do you have to be so foolish? Miranda Goo raised her hand to wipe away the tears on my cheeks, saying, Anyone in the world can call me foolish, but you can't, because you are 1,000 times, 10,000 times more foolish than me. My heart felt a mixture of sweetness and total despair, because I knew I couldn't alter her decision. She truly intended to join me in death, but I didn't want her to die. Miranda, since you know I did all of this solely for you, then you shouldn't let all my efforts go to waste. You should carry this hope of mine and live a good life, using my corneas to help me see the world. But no matter what I said, she simply refused to relent. When the two of us returned to the wooden cabin, Miranda Goo reached out to take my hand to help me out of the car. I was angry and refused to hold her hand, but she didn't mind. In her eyes, the currently angry me actually resembled my past, lively self. She carefully shielded me from behind as we walked toward the cabin. I sat down on the bed, curling my entire body into a tight ball as I hugged my knees and called out Chloe's name. Miranda Gu spoke up directly. There is only one room here. I arranged a hotel room for her. Now, it's just me and Miranda Gu alone in this cabin. She didn't want to be separated from me for even another second. Miranda Gu fetched some water to help me wash up, but I refused to cooperate, even going so far as to kick the water basin over. With immense patience, she cleaned up the room entirely, and then brought over another basin of water to help wash me. While wiping my fingers down, she noticed those tiny scars in the palm of my hand. The memories of how she had previously hurt me surfaced before her eyes once again. She went down on one knee right in front of me, lowering her head to gently press a kiss into my palm. It was a gesture of both complete submission and deep penance. She said, "Ethan, I'm so sorry. I was completely blinded by my own foolishness and intense jealousy before. During those 3 years you were gone, I never forgot you for a single moment. At times, I wanted to go out and look for you, but I was terrified of seeing you and Natalie Liu coupled up together. That performance you and Natalie staged back then became a lingering nightmare for me for a very long time afterward. Then, you suddenly reappeared in front of me, pulling out that seashell bracelet to trade with me for money. I was both thrilled and furious. Thrilled that you had actually kept the bracelet I gave you, but furious that you were willing to give it back to me just for $51,000. I ended up doing a whole series of deeply hurtful and irrational things to you. Ethan, our time together is already running out. Are you absolutely sure you want to spend our final moments holding a grudge against me?" My voice sounded incredibly choked. "Miranda, since you already know my time is running out, I only beg you to grant the final request of my life. Please live a good life." "But I don't want to. Ethan, you have absolutely no idea how agonizingly painful it was for me to live through those 3 years without you." Listening to the sound of her voice, I ultimately couldn't restrain myself from reaching out, intending to pull her up, only to touch her wet, tear-stained cheeks. She was crying again, and my heart completely softened. "Miranda, how have you become such a crybaby now?" Miranda Gu admitted it frankly. "I have never been as strong as you are. Have you forgotten that when we met for the very first time? I was crying back then too?" I fumbled around to grasp her palm, pulling her close to my side as I said, "Miranda, fate has already been extraordinarily unfair to the two of us. I went through so much hardship just to defeat it once, and secure your life. Please don't let me lose, okay?" This was the very first time I had ever voiced resentment against the unfairness of fate, which had made our entire lives so turbulent and full of suffering. Miranda Gu finally conceded. Because she wanted me. She wanted me to feel that I had truly defeated this unjust destiny. She promised me that she would live a good life, even if living on would bring nothing but pure agony. The two of us shared what would be our very first night, sleeping soundly in each other's arms in over 3 years. I slept deeply, but Miranda Gu didn't dare to sleep for long intervals. Every little while she would lift her head to look at me, ensuring that I hadn't silently vanished away. Waking up early the next morning, I felt a gentle kiss being pressed onto my forehead, and a smile instinctively graced the corners of my lips. This was the exact scene I had once yearned for, waking up every morning wrapped in my lover's embrace. Even if tomorrow were the end of the world, I would have the complete courage to face it. Then I heard Miranda Gu speak right beside my ear. "Ethan, let's get married. You still owe me a wedding." I froze completely, stammering out, "But Miranda Gu raised her hand and pressed her fingers against my lips. "There are absolutely no buts. You only need to say, 'I do.' Leave everything else to me." "Oh, I do." My life truly didn't have much time left. From this moment on, I didn't want to waste a single fraction of a second more. After getting out of bed, Miranda Gu personally prepared a beautiful breakfast. Once the two of us finished eating, we went to get our marriage certificate locally. In the afternoon, the wedding attire she had personally designed was air-freighted to our location. I reached out my hand to trace the intricate patterns on the groom's suit, asking softly, "Is this the one that belonged to Mr. Ding?" Miranda Gu replied, "It is, and yet it isn't. The style is nearly identical to the one Logan tried on before, but this specific piece was tailored with my own hands. Ethan, let me help you change into it." Our wedding ceremony was incredibly simple. Right in the middle of the boundless purple lavender fields, the assistant and Chloe stepped in to act as the officiant and the witness. Groom, Mr. Ethan Lee, are you willing to take Miss Miranda Gu to be your lawfully wedded wife, to enter into this covenant of marriage with her, in sickness and in health, in poverty and in wealth, or for any other reason, to love her, cherish her, respect her, accept her, and remain utterly faithful to her forever, until the very end of your life? Marrying her was a dream I had held since a very, very long time ago. Now, that dream was finally turning into a reality. I called out in a loud, clear voice, I do! Bride, Miss Miranda Gu, are you willing to take Mr. Ethan Lee to be your lawfully wedded husband? To enter into this covenant of marriage with him, in sickness and in health, in poverty and in wealth, or for any other reason, to love him, cherish her, respect him, accept him, and remain utterly faithful to him forever, until the very end of your life? With a gentle smile on the corners of her lips, and tears glistening inside her eyes, Miranda Gu said, I do. Now, the groom may kiss the bride. I lifted the wedding veil, and just like the very first time we shared a kiss, with a heart filled with nervous excitement, I slowly leaned in closer to Miranda Gu. A gentle breeze drifted past, bringing waves of floral fragrance along with it, looking exactly like a blessing bestowed upon us by nature itself. Following our marriage, my body grew weaker and weaker by the day, frequently leaving me asleep for an entire day at a time. And whenever this happened, Miranda Gu would guard my side without moving an inch, resembling a silent statue. Only when I opened my eyes once again did she look as if she had suddenly come back to life. During my moments of clear consciousness, what I loved most was going out with Miranda Gu to the lavender fields outside, leaning against her shoulder, catching the scent of the flowers, and feeling the gentle breath of nature. As the breeze ruffled through my hair, I said in an incredibly weak voice, Miranda, I'm so sleepy. Miranda Gu gripped my hand with a fierce intensity, her voice trembling violently. If you're sleepy, go ahead and sleep. I will stay right here with you forever. But at this exact moment, I stubbornly refused to close my eyes. When a person is right on the verge of death, they truly receive a premonition. I knew that the moment I closed my eyes this time, I would never wake up again. I raised my hand, gently caressing her cheek, wanting to engrave her face deeply into my mind. Miranda, I've heard that kind-hearted people can go up to heaven after they die, where there is no sorrow and no pain, only eternal happiness. Do you think I'll be able to go to heaven? Miranda Gu's eyes were completely bloodshot as she said, You will. Ethan, you will live a beautiful, happy life in heaven. Miranda, this time, I'll go ahead to heaven first to wait for you. Wait until your life comes to its natural end before you come find me, okay? Tears cascaded down her cheeks as she replied, Okay. Ethan, I will absolutely come find you. A satisfied smile appeared on the corners of my lips. My lover and I now shared a sacred promise in heaven. I would love her for all eternity in heaven, waiting for her forever. My fingers slid powerlessly away from her cheek. This time, I never woke up again. My body rested within Miranda Gu's embrace, growing cold one fraction at a time. She held me with desperate tightness, pressing her lips against my cold cheek, as she whispered, Ethan, I'm sorry. I cannot abide by the promise I made to you before. Miranda Gu pulled out the medication she'd prepared long ago and swallowed it down, saying, Ethan, I am coming to heaven to find you right now. You deceived me once before, and now I am deceiving you once in return. The two of us are completely even. When I get to heaven, you aren't allowed to blame me. Even if you do blame me, it's fine, as long as you let me stay by your side. The corners of her mouth twitched into a gentle, faint smile. A gust of wind blew past, and our bodies collapsed down together into the lavender fields. The faces of both individuals carried a deeply fulfilled, contented smile. From this moment on, we would finally be able to stay together for a long, long time, separated no more for all eternity. By the time the assistant and Chloe rushed over to our location, our bodies had long since grown entirely cold. They collected our remains, and after the cremation was completed, just as we had wished during our lifetimes, they scattered our ashes entirely across the lavender fields. With tears pooling in her eyes, Chloe asked the assistant, Do you think Mr. Lee and President Gu will still be together in the next life? They will. Even death itself cannot keep them apart.